Hello there, and welcome to the Cyber Cookie, your cybersecurity podcast, hosted by Dara Reynolds of CommSec. And today we are speaking to David McNamara, founder, about instant response, preparing for the inevitable. Today we're going to touch on topics like business continuity planning, steps for instant response, the minimum controls under NIS2 and DORA, supply chain security, SMEs, and funding. So without any further ado, let's get right into the conversation. So David, is it really a case of not if, but when it comes to cyber attacks?
No, absolutely. And we see it all the time. We have a security operations center that monitors 24/7 for our clients' infrastructure. And we're looking for breaches and attacks and, trying to contain them and analyze them and then we go into the incident response if they do get in and breach. Even having something like a security operations center doesn't negate the risk of an attack, but it helps you manage it and potentially stop it. So, but they can still get in because they're very clever people and they're very organized as well. So some of it's nation state or organized criminal groups. So that's really what you're trying to contend with,
Yes, absolutely, David. And I think it's an arms race at the minute. And these hackers are so clever; they're using tools to their advantage, likes of AI, and to really put their attacks on steroids.
Yeah, they're developing new ways to get in all the time. I was only looking at an article this morning where they were able to compromise the DMARC relationship between Proofpoint, which is a big cybersecurity company that does email filtering.
Yeah, I'll link the article in the description of the podcast.
Yeah, and basically they got in, so normally you check a header for an email to see if it's phishing, but your security partners like Proofpoint would make sure it's a genuine email from a recognized domain. Okay, so say for example it's Disney, so it'll have Disney.com at the end of it, so it would come across as legitimate, but they were able to breach that. All the technicalities, you can have a look in the report, but then those phishing emails became very legitimate, because if you're checking the headers, which you would normally do, you'd see it's something like Disney.com at yahoo.com, but now it's actually from Disney.com and it looks like it's legitimate, but within it they've embedded phishing links that when a user clicks on, say, an offer to collect a reward or whatever, and they put in their credentials thinking it's a genuine email, the attacker has it. So really interesting stuff, on how they're evolving. And then there's new threats as well. Quishy is the new favored one, where they send in barcodes, or QR codes rather, and those QR codes can't be researched by Google or any of the main players. Now there are solutions out there with other security companies, but that can kind of stop that. But people, using the QR code in an email will then, obviously follow the QR code, and that's embedded into another phishing site. So very clever stuff.
And not only that, they're also using AI to make the emails better written. And we're not seeing the same old grammar mistakes we saw in the past. It really is. Yes, I think the QR code, the email filter basically sees it as an image and not a link. So I think that's how it bypasses a lot of these checks. I know some vendors have solutions to combat Quishy.
Yeah, and even with deep fake as well, video. I'm sure you've heard of the incident in Hong Kong, where there's a bank official was convinced that the COO and the CFO and the CEO based in London were telling him to transfer $25 million, which he did. So, by video. So again, very clever stuff.
So the bad guys have done their job. They've breached the perimeter. They've got in. What are the steps for incident response in your mind?
So there's basically 5 steps to an incident response plan that organizations should follow. Preparation is step 1. So prepare for the incident. So, again, where this is really good by using people with actually real world experience of these type of incidents to help you develop that plan is really paramount, because they're seeing it every day. So the preparation is key. And then the second step, obviously, is detection and analysis. So you detect that you have a breach, and then you analyze, okay, how did it get in? Where else did it go? What information did it take? How did it get out of the organization as well? What method did it use? And then you're into step 3, containment. Right? So you try to contain the incident, eradicate it, and then recover from it. Now, often companies who are ill prepared don't have or have poor backups, or they have the backups on the same network where an attacker get in, they'll put a ransomware in there, and they'll encrypt the production system, but they'll also encrypt the backups, so you can't recover your data without getting the key from them. So having your backups encrypted as well, and with other safeguards such as multi-factor authentication on the backups, that's key as well for organizations, just to try and minimize the risk of a ransomware attack, for example, coming in and doing that to their backups as well. And then step 4 would be the post-incident activity. So, okay, what did we learn from it? How did, again, going back on your containment or eradication, your detection and analysis. So what did we learn from that? How do we stop this from happening again? And then you test your incident response process. So they're the kind of 5 steps. So preparation, detection and analysis, containment, post-incident activity, and testing your incident response process. Again, what's really good to do here is exercises. Okay, we've a ransomware attack, right? They've got into our main AD, our main domain. They have basically the keys to the kingdom. What do we do? How do we actually stop this from happening again? So putting in controls and processes, and following recognized standards such as in terms of information security, such as ISO 27001 would be key. So because that gives you basically a standard to adhere to. And even if you don't go for the certification, even to align to the incident or to the information security standard, that's a very good way of negating and de-risking a lot of this for companies to follow those controls that are already prepared in ISO 27001, or even some technical controls such as NIST or CIS, which are more technological controls that you can put in place.
That's great, David. And it's like testing them like war games, doing simulations, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because it is a crisis. This takes down businesses every day. And a lot of businesses don't recover after a cyber attack. So, being prepared, proper planning, prevent poor performance. I know there was another P in there somewhere at one point that the guy said to me before, prevent piss poor performance. I think it was term to use, but please don't quote me on that. But so the preparedness is really trying to think of different scenarios. But that's again when you really need to enlist outside help with people who have real world experience of actually doing this on a daily basis, such as ourselves. But that experience, you can't put value on it, because they can help you, guide you through what can happen, what could happen, and how you deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of getting operations back up and running, does that involve like a bit business continuity plan, bit like, Ryanair getting operations going again after the CrowdStrike incident, which wasn't a cyber attack, but more of an IT outage. Is that the sort of thing?
But no, absolutely. And testing those business continuity plans are key as well. So there's two pieces of legislation that are about to come into force. DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act for financial institutions, basically looks at your operational resilience, including your backups, your incident response plans, and also then for other organizations that deal with national infrastructure, there's what's called NIS2, NIS2. And you probably heard of that now already, Barry. But NIS2 then looks at kind of 10 minimum controls that organizations need to have in place. That legislation is going to come into force on the 17th of October this year. There's a lot of companies that still don't know about this. So there needs to be a good marketing job done on NIS2, because the fines are kind of severe, in line with what GDPR would have brought in. So you're looking at, for essential organizations, you're looking at a 10 million fine, or 2% of your global revenue if you're over 250 employees and 50 million of revenue. And if you're over 50 employees and 10 million of revenue, you're looking at 1.4% of your global turnover and €7 million of fines. Now, the differences there between kind of GDPR and NIS2 is now it's a boardroom can be held accountable for this. They can be named, stop doing the managerial functions, but there's also a big reporting capability, reporting requirement that you must inform the National CERT, which is the NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Centre, that you've had a breach. This is a cross-border initiative as well, EU border I'm talking about, whereby you have that CERT, so the National CERT, the NCSC, will inform the other CERTs around Europe that we've had a serious incident. Has this happened elsewhere in Europe? Or if it hasn't, be on the lookout for it. This is the method of the attack. This is how they got in. So, and you have obligations for that reporting with 24 hours, then 72, and then ad hoc requests, and then a 30-day incident update. So it's really gone much further than GDPR would, and it brings it into the boardroom. So again, really showing how serious Europe is taking this. But it's very good for companies as well to actually have this, I suppose, focus put on improving their security posture by having the 10 minimum controls that are in NIS2. But it also gets into incident response. How do you, cope with an incident? Preparedness. As we mentioned, containment, and those 5 basic steps that companies will have to start thinking about incident response as well, and how they deal with a breach.
Yes, that really gets them thinking, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. Well, when you're stopped doing your job because you failed to, follow the guidelines, the directive of NIS2, that kind of gives a kind of wake up call for a lot of companies.
So then, moving on, there becomes a moral dilemma. Do you pay the ransom? Do you don't? Are you funding organised crime by paying the ransom? That really comes into play. What are your thoughts on that? And then the other side is I don't pay this ransom, am I out of business?
Yeah, and look, that's a dilemma for a lot of companies. And yeah, morally, you can say, absolutely, we're not paying that because of fund terrorists, but I'm out of business then in a couple of days' time. So, people will pay it, but, I'd rather, encourage organizations be prepared for these type of incidents. So put in those controls that are required, and that, mitigates any risk that you have. Bringing your likelihood of a serious incident down considerably. That's not to say if somebody wants to get in, they will. But at the same time, you're trying to minimize that risk. So, start thinking about security in a serious way and look at how you would respond to an incident, what it would mean to your business. If you can't get access to your systems, you can't trade, or your brand suffers the serious damage. So like that's absolutely key. So it is a matter for individual companies, obviously, but I wouldn't like to
ultimately
one way or the other.
Business
ultimately
plan.
it comes down to really
That's a
business
base
continuity plan as well.
covered.
If you have that worked out, if you have a way to
then
continue
question
operating
of whether to be
even after
then
an attack like that, then to recover.
Exactly. And you've done step one, was you've prepared for the incident. And look, the other part in this too, which is fundamental to a lot of businesses that might not necessarily be in scope, is the third-party supply chain. So you might have SMEs that are supplying into these essential and important entities that wouldn't have security controls in place as much as these entities would have. So you're only as strong as your weakest link. So the onus is on those essential and important entities to check with their third-party suppliers to see how good their security defenses are and how prepared they are for an incident. So it's so wide-reaching that there's no company really that's not going to be impacted in some way. I suppose on that subject, I think funding needs to be given to SMEs to bolster their defences, and a standard needs to be given to them that they can adhere to, so that at least they're doing the basic controls, which there isn't one in Ireland yet. I know the NCSC are working on one, which we were involved in, and Cyber Ireland. But this is absolutely key that they're encouraged to follow best practices as well, because if they don't get funding, it's very hard for them to compete. So I think that's important as well from an SME perspective.
Yes, and there is a standard, of course, in the UK, Cyber Essentials, which seems to have had a huge impact on supply chains within the SME sector.
Yeah, but we're still a while away from getting that in place here, and I think cyber insurance companies need to work out with the NCSC how that's going to be covered. That at least there's companies who take on these standards and invest the money that they need, whether it's the NCSC SME standard or if it's ISO 27001, that they actually reduce their premiums down, because companies are de-risking it from an insurance perspective. So I think that there's a plethora of different tracks that need to work on it together to help all organizations become safe and safeguard their business.
Yes, and I think in general terms, the insurance industry in Ireland, it's not like the US where you've taken the risk out, you see a discount or you see a reduction in your premium. So I think something should be done in that space to help SMEs fund their cybersecurity strengthening.
So I think there does need to be a bit of lobbying done by ISME and the SFA to try and help smaller organizations. Again, I'm a big advocate for the SME, because a lot of them don't have the resources or the skills in the house to be able to do this, to be able to increase their security posture. So they need support and help and encouragement.
David, thanks very much. That was very insightful, and there's lots of information for people to take away and how they can strengthen their incident response and prepare for the inevitable. If they want to get in, they can. So having the business continuity plan is obviously very important, and preparedness. So lots of lessons learned on that. So thanks again. So thanks a million for listening. Your support here is much appreciated. Please like, share on your favorite platforms. Tell everybody. The more people that listen, the better. So thanks very much, and we'll see you on the next episode.